They were in communication every single day.
James Charles has got to be the biggest bag fumbler of our entire generation.
Recently posted that a good friend of hers actually leaked her new address.
If y'all don't know, he just got exposed for doing things with Kayla Malec's boyfriend, Evan Johnson,
who she is still, like, healing from.
You are not ready for this one. James Charles is right back in the hot seat, and this time it's messier than ever. Just when the internet seemed to forget why he's been called out so many times before, a fresh scandal has exploded, dragging him into a swirling drama involving betrayal, shady friendships, and a guy at the center of serious accusations. Now receipts are flying, former friends are speaking out, and James, he's staying dead silent. But that silence, it's making everything look so much worse. If you thought the James Charles saga was over, think again. Let's break down how his comeback era might have just hit a wall again. This is Elle. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and like this video for future updates. Thank you all so much for your great and kind support. For a while, it genuinely looked like James Charles was staging a comeback. After years of controversy, he seemed to be laying low, focusing on his brand and appealing to a younger generation that either forgot or never knew the full extent of his past. His makeup company Painted started gaining traction. Comments under his videos started shifting. People were calling him funny again, asking, wait, why do people hate him? It was the kind of soft rebrand influencers dream about. Enough time passes, new fans emerge, and the past starts to fade.
I don't know, with problematic people, sometimes people will show themselves to you, and you could either choose to listen or choose to ignore it. And yeah, so with the new things I see happening, again, it's all alleged. I don't know if anything is true, but I mean, if it were to be true, I'm not surprised. And I worry about the ethics. I worry about the fact that his whole new fan base is kids. Like, the reason he is having a resurgence is because it is children who are discovering him for the first time. And it's funny because there's a huge narrative online. I saw a lot during Coachella, people being like, oh my God, James is actually so funny. Like, why do we hate him? And I'm realizing, like, the people don't know. People don't know why he has a bad reputation. Kids don't understand why. And they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to understand why. Like, that is not something that kids should be faced with. And, you know, I don't know.
James played into it perfectly, posting lighthearted content, staying out of obvious drama, and subtly painting himself as the misunderstood creator who had been wrong. But here's the thing about public memory. It doesn't forget forever. All it takes is one messy scandal to remind everyone why they turned on you in the first place. And for James, that scandal just landed loud, ugly, and incredibly personal.
Just letting everyone in Australia know that James Charles is sleeping with Evan Johnson, the one that broke Kayla Malec's jaw and badly, the one that was in prison. James Charles has been housing the flying him out to sleep with him.
Man, yeah, James, you're fucking kid. We're gonna need like 27 more crying apologies. Not only is this guy a P3DO, you get it, befriended this Kayla girl who vented to him about her boyfriend and then went behind Kayla's back to smash or get smashed by this. I know he's just shit right now. Like, he is so terrified. He's trying to hire like 19 PR teams to try to clean up this mess, and they're responding like, no, kid, you're cooked. Kind of awesome now. People are starting to hold him accountable for his disgusting acts. So, James, you're cooked.
Everything changed when Kayla Malec went public. In a raw, emotional series of videos, she exposed disturbing details about her relationship with her ex-boyfriend, Evan Johnson. The internet rallied behind her almost instantly. Her bravery in telling her story hit a nerve, and the wave of support was massive. But as people were digesting what Kayla had revealed, a second, unexpected shockwave hit. James Charles was involved. Suddenly, this wasn't just about Kayla and Evan, it was about betrayal, blurred lines, and James possibly siding with someone accused of causing serious harm. A friend of Evan's came forward to back Kayla, and in doing so, casually dropped the bombshell that James wasn't just aware of what happened. He was romantically involved with Evan after the breakup, and not just involved, allegedly housing him, advising him, and all while staying publicly silent as Kayla was bearing her trauma to the world. Just like that, the narrative flipped. Was James simply clueless, or was he actively choosing to overlook a friend's pain to chase a guy at the center of a scandal?
If you're not sure what the drama is about James Charles and Kayla Malec right now, I will explain it. I had never heard of Kayla Malec before this. I didn't really understand what was going on, but she's an influencer on here, and she was in a relationship with this guy named Evan Johnson. She put out a very detailed 2-part video on YouTube where she tells her story on what it was like to date this man. This man was a psychopath. I don't want to say words that are going to get this video restricted, but he was an awful person. and I highly recommend you go watch that video. I'm still getting through it slowly because it's very triggering for me, as I've been in a very similar relationship, which I want to talk about in another video. But basically where James Charles comes in is after Kayla had posted something on, I believe it was her Instagram, where she said that Evan was not good to her. This was before she came out with the super detailed video, but she explained some things. James Charles, who was a friend of hers, reached out to Evan, the ex-boyfriend, and was like, hey, I've heard you're being canceled. Like, I want to, help you out. Like, I want to give you advice. Like, if you need someone to talk to, I'm here. Evan starts this like super close relationship with James Charles, and James Charles is giving him advice on how to move forward with being canceled. He's inviting him to LA to go stay with him, and it turns into an intimate relationship between those two. So understandably, everybody is like, what, James Charles, why would you, first of all, even date your friend's ex, but on top of that, someone who was awful to her, who she is still like healing from? It hasn't even been that long since they broke up. I think it's been like a couple months now. It had to have only been like maybe weeks when James Charles actually reached out to him. And to get more insight into Evan's life when all of this starts coming out, the guy from Be Better did an interview with one of Evan's friends who, once he heard how Evan was actually treating Kayla, he cut him off. And he went on to be interviewed and spilled all of his side of the story. Again, if you're going to get into this like drama, definitely watch Kayla's video, because all of this seemed like kind of like not that big of a deal to me until I watched her videos, and that really puts it into perspective.
This is where everything took a sharp turn, because while the internet was still processing Kayla's side of the story, the name James Charles suddenly popped up in a way no one expected. It wasn't just that James knew Evan, he had allegedly been pursuing him while all of this chaos was unfolding. According to people close to the situation, James had been aware of the breakup, aware of the accusations, and still chose to entertain something romantic with Evan, the same Evan Kayla had just accused of emotionally and mentally hurting her. Here's the surprising part. James and Kayla weren't strangers. They had been friends, they had taken videos together, there was a level of personal trust between them, and now that trust looked like it had been shattered for a man at the center of serious allegation. People started asking the obvious: how could James stand by someone like that? Was it ignorance, selfishness, or just another example of him choosing validation over accountability? And why, if he knew the story behind Evan, did he stay so eerily quiet as everything exploded online?
They were in communication every single day. When I speak on that I was with Evan every single day, I was with Evan majority of every single day. The only time I was not with Evan was when he went to Miami and then when he went to California. The times that I was with him, James would use Instagram as his Snapchat. And I didn't know, like, was not aware, like, why does James not have Snapchat? Like, why is he using Instagram photos, sending back and forth?
I can tell you why he doesn't have Snapchat.
Once James's name was in the mix, the internet did what it always does. Started digging, screenshots, story times, mutual friends weighing in. Suddenly, this wasn't just a messy breakup. It was a full-blown scandal with James Charles smack in the middle. And the reaction, swift and brutal. Kayla's friend Zach came forward and confirmed everything. James had allegedly known about Evan's behavior, had been told directly, and still got involved with him.
Evan sharing the snaps with you, were you looking over his shoulder? Like, how did you see it? Was he kind of showing you and thought it was funny? Like,
so at the beginning, he was showing me the snaps and thought I guess it was funny.
Like, oh, look, I'm snapping James Charles.
And I'm getting, pictures.
Yeah.
But as time went by, it seemed like the friendship/relationship got very private.
Right.
After it got very private, James had changed the mode on Instagram to vanish mode.
He's been known to do that.
So everything that was getting sent, it would like get sent and be completely gone. A message would go away. Yeah, just like Snapchat.
That wasn't just messy, that was calculated, according to many fans. Antonio Garza chimed in with cryptic shade, and Mikayla Testa didn't hold back, calling James out for lacking empathy and staying silent when it really mattered. Across TikTok and Twitter, people were dragging James for not just being a bad friend, but for showing once again that when things get uncomfortable, he disappears.
From speaking to Kayla, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, there was a situation where James Charles had wanted Evan Johnson and Kayla Malec to do a promotional material for his painted company for Valentine's Day, kind of having them be a couple of some kind, probably for his blush launch or something like that. Looking back, that's obviously a little bit creepy, because knowing that the entire time he was interacting with them, he wanted Kayla out of the picture, and he's really the one that wanted Evan, that's already a little bit bizarre.
Yes.
So then James had reached out to Kayla and said something along the lines of, "Are we still good to do this Valentine's Day project?" And Kayla said, "Oh, so funny. Actually, we literally just broke up yesterday. Evan did some of the worst things a human being could ever do to someone to me. Explain the situation." And then James said
So James came back after she said that and was like, "Can I have him now?" Kayla thought he was completely joking. Like, literally thought her best friend, which is, James at the time, was just joking with her, saying that.
But that's already like a really inappropriate joke.
Yeah, that's...
Even if it is, but little did we know he wasn't joking at all.
And that silence, it wasn't doing him any favors. The longer James stayed quiet, the more people started seeing a pattern. Someone who only speaks when it's about saving his image, not standing up for what's right. At this point, his so-called redemption arc was looking more like a rerun, and everyone was watching.
As far as I know, his sexuality, Evan was straight.
Right, and it's hard to speculate because obviously it exists on a spectrum, but for the most part, he operated and identified as a straight man, which is actually James Charles's type.
Just when it seemed like James was going to ride this one out in total silence, something unexpected dropped. Alleged DMs from James to Zach, and they were... In the message, James tries to explain himself, claiming he did reach out to Kayla privately and that he had no idea about what Evan had done until it was too late. He paints himself as a good friend caught in the middle, someone trying to show empathy to both sides. But the tone of the message raised eyebrows fast. He mentioned being emotionally manipulated, needing empathy, and even brought up Coachella. Yes, Coachella, as a reason he hadn't responded sooner. It read less like an apology and more like a carefully crafted PR move. People weren't buying it, the timeline didn't add up, and the attempt to recenter the narrative around his own feelings came off as deflective and self-serving.
Really quickly as well, you had also said that you believe that James had invited Evan to Coachella.
Yes. So, I was aware that I was witnessed the conversation of James saying that he's going to the first weekend of Coachella and that he buys his team or something, so many people, I don't know if it's his whole team or what, an artist wristband for Coachella. Well, he had bought Evan one. Obviously, Evan hadn't received it in the mail. I don't know if he was going to fly him there and give it to him, but the plan was for Evan to go to Coachella and he was going to have an artist band. But the only thing is Evan was a little, nervous because he was, more likely, Kayla's gonna be there. And it was going, back and forth, and then James is, they're trying to figure out how to work it out. But what stopped that is Kayla come forward to the world with her YouTube videos of 1 and 2. So, obviously, James was not gonna take him to Coachella then, because that would be insane.
So it wasn't enough for James to just have been told privately from someone who was his friend for years that this person did horrible things to me. It was when it became public that it became an inconvenience to him and he was willing to separate himself from Evan when it was a risk to his reputation.
Instead of clearing things up, the leaked DM just poured gasoline on the fire. If James thought this was going to smooth things over, he miscalculated, because now it wasn't just about what he did, but how he was trying to spin it. At this point, people weren't just reacting to this scandal, they were connecting the dots. Because for anyone who's followed James Charles over the years, this all felt eerily familiar. A new platform, a new set of fans, but the same behavior playing out in real time. The charming guy who builds trust quickly, then suddenly finds himself in drama involving blurred boundaries, questionable choices, and a glaring lack of accountability. It's a loop we've seen before. And what makes this one sting even more? James had the perfect opportunity to show growth. With a loyal fan base willing to give him another chance, he could have stepped up, supported Kayla publicly, and shown he'd learned from the past. Instead, he aligned himself with the wrong person, stayed silent until it hurt his image, and when he finally spoke, he made it about himself. The problem isn't just that James made a mistake, it's that his response proves he still doesn't understand why people are hurt. It's the same cycle, new face, same playbook, and people are finally tired of pretending it's just bad luck. This time, it just feels different. Not because the scandal is more shocking, James has been in deeper waters before, but because this one strikes at something more personal, loyalty, trust, and the way people show up when it matters. This isn't about flirtatious DMS or blurred age lines. It's about choosing a guy over a friend and staying silent while that friend publicly relives her trauma. It's about what James didn't say and how that silence speaks louder than any makeup tutorial or TikTok comeback. For so long, James has gotten by on charisma, fast apologies, and a brand polished enough to distract people from the mess underneath. But now, the people who once gave him the benefit of the doubt are realizing that maybe, just maybe, the behavior isn't the problem, it's the pattern. And with each new scandal, it gets harder to believe that change is ever really coming. This isn't just backlash, it's a cultural shift. The audience is growing up and James's usual tactics, they're not working anymore. So now we're left with the question that's followed James Charles for years. Can he actually change, or has the internet just been caught in a cycle of his mistakes, his spin, and our short-term memory? Because every time it feels like he's turning a corner, another situation pulls the mask back and reminds everyone why they stopped trusting him in the first place. Maybe he really does believe he's doing his best. Maybe he thinks his silence is maturity, or that his behind-the-scenes apologies are enough. But public trust doesn't work like that, not anymore. People want transparency, not carefully timed DMS. They want accountability, not aesthetic rebrands. And right now, James doesn't seem to understand that the audience he's trying to win back isn't asking for perfection. They're asking for growth. And until that happens, every redemption era will look a lot like the last. So can James Charles change? Maybe. But at this point, the real question is, will anyone still be watching when he finally does?
James Charles has got to be the biggest bag fumbler of our entire generation. If y'all don't know, he just got exposed for doing things with Kayla Malec's boyfriend, Evan Johnson. And if you know anything about that situation, you know that Evan Johnson is not a good guy. Allegedly, James was talking to Evan and even paying him to do stuff with him. There's proof of this, there's receipts, there's like everything you could want. And he was allegedly doing this while Evan was dating Kayla and he was friends with Kayla. Now, this is far from the first time the man has gotten exposed. I mean, he's been canceled like 30 times at this point. But could we just acknowledge that this man has everything, literally everything that anyone could ever want? I mean, just on one platform alone, he has over 40 mil. I mean, all of his platforms combined, I don't know what the actual number is. Someone could put it in the comments, but I'm sure it's huge. And yet he's perpetually single and perpetually going after straight and already taken men. Well, men and boys too, if you know, you know. Why is it that this man just can't be rich, famous, and happy while not doing all this shady stuff? Like, I guarantee you, James would be way happier if he actually had a stable relationship and he stopped going after all these men that just aren't into him. But for whatever reason, nobody seems to be able to stay around James Diddy Charles for long periods of time.